What is up guys, welcome back to another video where we're doing a deck profile here, a debut for Cubics. So Cubics is a deck that I've been meaning to build for quite a long time now, and I have to be honest, it's still not complete, but with that being said, I really just wanted to put out this deck profile because it was something that, look, like I said, I've been building it ever since I first witnessed it in the actual movie itself, and the fact that it took me this long to accumulate all the main cubic cards, yeah, it was just really quite an enjoyable journey, to be honest. But the card I'm missing is not actually part of the deck, but I do consider it a staple for the deck itself. But it's better to actually just show you that card, so without further ado, let's get started. So to begin with monsters, we're playing 3 copies here of Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. This is pretty much your main boss monster. If you can show 3 different cubic cards in your actual hand, then you could essentially just summon this card out for free. And when it attacks, I mean, well, look at it, it's a 3000 beat stick. However, during the end phase, both players pretty much take 3000 damage. So if you manage to actually deal enough damage to your opponent where they have less than 3000 life points left, at the end of the turn, you pretty much win the duel. Or if you bring out 2 of these on the same turn and you manage to deal your opponent 2000 damage, then these 2 cards alone will just finish the opponent off at the end of the turn. So definitely quite a variable. It's kind of like a hit or miss with this particular card, but it does make a lot of things quite fun. Next, of course, we're playing 3 copies here of Duza, the Meteor Cubic Vessel. This card was actually the next most difficult card to actually get, or rather it was one of the hardest cards to actually get in the entire deck, because you had to actually wait until it came as a promo for one of the movie special edition packs, which was definitely very difficult to get. So because of that, it was one of the reasons why I couldn't build the deck for the longest time ever. Alright, so next we're playing 3 copies here of Vijam. Vijam can't be destroyed by a battle, which makes it really difficult for your opponent to actually get over. However, if you set it and your opponent actually attacks into it, it means it engaged in battle. So at the end of that battle, you get to put this card in your spell and trap zone, you give your opponent a cubic counter, and basically any of your monsters on your opponent's side of the field that has a cubic counter has their effects negated, and they also can't attack as well. So it just makes this card a really pesky card to deal with, and even then it's still one of the main key cards of the deck itself. Next, I'm actually going to do all these cards at the same time. We have Gaira Guile, we have Blade Gaduria, we have Buster Gundil, and we have Indoria Doom Vault. So all of these cards are essentially going to work off the Vijam itself, which is why we're playing 3 copies of the Vijam. But if these guys are pretty much here in the deck, they just work on themselves. So we just talk about each of these cards one by one. So with Gaira Guile right over here, by sending your Vijam most likely to the graveyard, or any cubic monster you have on the field, then you could special summon this card. And if summoned this way, then it gains 800 attack. Now if this card is special summoned from the hand, you could actually inflict 800 damage to your opponent. At the end of the damage step, if this card actually managed to battle, you can target up to 2 of your Vijams in the graveyard and send this card to the graveyard. If you do, you summon back 2 of those Vijams from your graveyard onto the field. And then you can add Vulcan, the Cubic King, from your deck to your hand, which doesn't really matter in this particular case, but we'll just move on from here. Next, for Blade Garudia, you special summon this card by sending 2 cubic monsters, so just 1 higher than this. However, instead it gains 2000 attack on summon, and it could also make a second attack during the battle phase as well, so not too bad. If it actually destroys a monster by battle, then you could also target up to 3 Vijam in your graveyard and then send this card to the graveyard and special summon those. Then you could also add the Buster Gundil from your deck to your hand, which we have over here, the Buster Gundil. So Buster Gundil, you guys could probably already guess, but you send 3 cubic monsters you control to the graveyard to summon it out. And yeah, if this card is summoned this way, then it gains 3000 attack. So it's much harder to bring out, but it's more rewarding anyway. And this card can make a second and third attack during each battle phase. if this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card, by battle or card effect, then you could target up to 3 cubic monsters in your graveyard and then special summon them. Then you could just add any cubic card from your deck to your hand, which means you would be adding most likely the Enduria Doom. This card is also similar to Buster Gun Deal in the sense that you would have to send 3 cubic monsters you control to the graveyard to special summon it. However, if it is special summoned, then it gets 2400 attack, and if this card is special summoned from the hand, you could also inflict 800 damage to your opponent as well. Now, if this card is actually sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, or card rather, by battle or card effect, then you could target up to 3 cubic monsters in your graveyard, special summon them, then you could add 1 cubic card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So, although it's a little bit different than this by not gaining as much attack, it does have more genericism in the deck by just a bit, and it doesn't actually search for specifics. So yeah, this is definitely just really nice here. But we really only have to play one of each given how ridiculous each of the summoning conditions actually are. That was pretty much it for the cubic monsters, so if you guys are actually wondering why I'm not playing the other cubic monsters, it's a matter of preference. You guys play whichever ones you want. I like these ones because they synergize very well with each other, and if I were to play any of the other ones, I would at most add in 1 copy at best. But for the final monster, we are playing 3 copies here of Summoner Monk. It's mainly just to summon out the Doozer, but even then, it is still quite good to actually go for an Xyz play as well. Any rank 4 is okay, but Summoner Monk is more so just acting as your extra 3 copies for Doozer, so it just makes it a bit more consistent. Alright, so onto spells. We're playing 3 copies here of Cubic Karma, so when this card is activated, you can target 1 cubic monster you control, except for Vigilm, and send any number of Vigilm, the cubic seed, from your hand or deck to your graveyard. And that monster gains 800 attack for each, which is not really a great effect. It's not the main effect anyway, because the secondary effect is what you want. During your opponent's turn, if Vigilm is special summoned by the effect of a cubic monster, send this card to the graveyard, which again, not the main effect we're going for, and if you do, halve your opponent's life points. It's actually the last effect that's actually the good one. You can banish this card from your graveyard and add 1 cubic monster from your deck to your hand. So you're gonna be ditching this most of the time with Burial Goods and use its graveyard effect. But you know what, even in the situation that you draw into this card, the first 2 effects will somehow get it so that this card ends up in the graveyard anyway, so you don't have to worry too much about Cubic Karma for that sense, but it is still one of the greatest searches in this actual deck itself. We're also playing 3 copies here of Cubic Wave. Target 1 cubic monster you control and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. The attack of that monster you control becomes double its current attack, and if it does, the attack of the monster your opponent controls become half its current attack. You can banish this card and any number of cubic monsters from your graveyard, then target face-up monsters your opponent controls equal to the number of those banished cubic monsters and place a cubic counter on them. And if you guys already remember, the cubic monsters, any monsters really with cubic counters can't attack and their effects are negated. So Cubic Wave is really great, simply mostly helping out for the OTK, because together with your Crimson Nova, then you just deal a bunch of damage, and then with Crimson Nova's effect, it's game over. So I definitely really love this card. Next, we're playing only 2 copies here of Cubic Dharma. This was actually the new card from Dual Overload, and you essentially take no battle damage from attacks involving your cubic monsters, and you can only use each of the following effects of Cubic Dharma once per turn during your main phase. So you could actually send a cubic monster from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, you draw a card. I think that's just a really good card to just help cycle out your deck, and it's also sending any cubic card as well, spell or trap. So if you actually wanted to send your Cubic Karma, then you could definitely do so. And also you can banish this card from the graveyard, then target a cubic monster in your graveyard and actually add it to your hand. So again, great way to just add either your Doozer or your Crimson Nova, who happen to actually be in your graveyard. Definitely really love this card. It was one of the greatest support cards that Cubics could have ever got. Next, we're playing here the Monster Gate. Monster Gate's really just played here just to get to our Doozer. pretty much all of our other cubics can't even be summoned anyway. The only card that can actually be summoned is the Dooza itself, which makes Monster Gate a really amazing card when it actually gets pulled off. So yeah, I'm only playing 2 for the fact that it requires you to tribute a monster and then pull things off, but even then, having the Monster Gates are definitely really amazing for the deck. Of course, this is no surprise to you guys, but we're playing 2 copies of Burial Goods simply because we have Cubic Karma. Playing 2 MST, it's just my own preference. We're playing 1 copy of Mind Control, Reasoning for the same reason as I'm playing Monster Gates. We're also playing Upstart Goblin for a bit of deck thinning, likewise with the One Day of Peace, and we're also playing the Monster Reborn and the Caught by the Grave just because they're really good. However, the one card I actually don't have, which I said was a staple in the deck, yes, it is Pot of Extravagance. I think this deck should be playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Basically, the extra deck is completely useless. You will barely use it in the game at all. And yeah, I just really need the Pot of Extravagance. Yes, I know it's cheap now. The only problem is I can't find it. I just have a lot of difficulty. So yeah, I'm sorry that I don't have it. I really wish I did, and that was one of the reasons why I put off this deck profile for so long, but I really wanted to showcase this deck profile, and yeah, I just figured I'll just explain it to you guys that Pot of Extravagance is one of the most important cards for this particular deck, and you need to play 3 of them. And finally, to end things off with trap cards, we're playing 3 copies here of Unification, basically allowing you to fusion summon into your big fusion monster, which, I mean, it rarely happens, but either way, it's still really amazing that you could actually pull something like that off. However, one of its main effects here is you could banish this card from your graveyard and actually just special summon a level 4 lower cubic monster from your hand or deck, ignoring summoning conditions. And yeah, if you do, it just can't be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn, which makes it, again, another amazing effect. You could also just ditch it off using Burial Goods. Right, so on with the extra deck. Obviously we're playing 2 copies here of our Crimson Nova Trinity, the Dark Cubic Lord. This is obviously one of our main cards that you can go into with the Unification if you manage to pull it off, but I'm playing 2. It really serves no purpose other than that. For the rest of the extra deck, it's just a bunch of utility cards: Crusadia Avramax, Deco Talker, Nightmare Phoenix, Cerberus, Underclock Taker, Akashic Magician, Link Rebo, and then a bunch of rank 4s, Tornado Dragon, Baguska, Castell, and the Utopia package. And that's pretty much how the deck actually revolves around. You don't really need the extra deck, they're mostly just utility cards itself, but either way that's fine because your whole deck here will rely on actually going into, well, it's not going to rely on, but the extra deck's purpose is really just to be there as fodder for your Pot of Extravagance, and if you manage to get the Pot of Extravagance, then yeah, that's the great thing about it. But that's pretty much it for this deck, so if you guys enjoyed it, definitely leave a thumbs up. I will be doing some test hands, so don't forget to subscribe, and that way you'll be notified when that video comes out. But also don't forget to share this video as well, and in the meantime, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time.